Jonah Lomu. The human cheat code. Alright, let's just start with the most obvious one. Jonah freaking Lomu. If rugby were a video game, this guy was the boss level no one could beat. 6'5", 120 kilos, and sprinting like a winger from the 100 metre final. Watching defenders try to stop him was like watching toddlers try to tackle a moving truck. Brave, but pointless. That semi-final against England in the 95 World Cup. He scored 4 tries, and one of them involved him steamrolling over Mike Catt. It looked illegal, it felt illegal, but it wasn't. Here's the thing though, Lomu was so dominant that teams had to reinvent their entire defensive structure. Suddenly, your winger couldn't just be fast. He needed to be built like a flanker, because Jonah existed. Defensive lines got deeper, cover systems got tighter, and the entire backline started going to the gym twice a day. He didn't just break tackles, he broke tactics. And after him, every team went shopping for a next Lomu. Spoiler alert, there wasn't one. But if Jonah changed how teams defend, then the next guy? He changed how referees blow the whistle. Richie McCaw, the legal outlaw. Let's talk. Richie McCaw, the man, the myth, the walking grey area of the rugby rulebook. Now, Richie wasn't flashy. He didn't score 50-metre tries or throw no-look passes. What he did was ruin your day at the breakdown. If you were a ball carrier and saw Richie coming, you knew 2 things. 1, the ball's about to be stolen, and 2, the ref probably isn't going to penalise him. He had this sixth sense for pushing the absolute limit of the laws. Like, imagine playing Monopoly with someone who keeps buying hotels but never pays rent. That was Richie at the Rock, and he did it for years. The IRB, now World Rugby, got tired of people moaning about him and rewrote laws around entry, release, and sealing off just to make the breakdown clearer. And guess what? He still dominated. Referees started getting stricter, players got smarter, and suddenly the breakdown became the most complicated science experiment in the sport. You can thank McCaw for that. But while Richie was changing how we look at the breakdown, another legend was changing how we think about injuries. Brian O'Driscoll, the high tackle catalyst. Now BOD, Brian O'Driscoll. Smooth, smart, classy. And the unfortunate face of some truly ugly tackles. Let's rewind to 2005 Lions Tour, New Zealand. First test, first minute. Tana Umaga and Kevin Mialamo lift BOD, flip him, and slam him shoulder first into the turf. Dislocated shoulder. Tore over. The ref didn't even blink. No penalty. Play on. Now listen, BOD wasn't the only one taking big hits, but this one was different. It was televised, high profile, and downright dangerous. That moment, and several others, lit the fire under World Rugby to rethink the way head and neck injuries were being handled. Fast forward a few years, and suddenly we've got stricter tackle laws, the introduction of the high tackle framework, and the head injury assessment, HIA, protocol. All of it aimed at protecting players like BOD from, well, getting bodied. But while Brian's pain shaped player safety, one cheeky scrum half changed something far more sacred. The scrum itself. George Gregan, the sneaky feed. Alright, now this one's for the rugby nerds. George Gregan, one of the most capped players ever, one of the most annoying scrum halves ever, in the best way, and the absolute king of feeding the scrum like he was tossing a frisbee to his number 8. Back in the day, scrum halves would act like they were feeding the ball straight down the middle, but let's be real, that ball was headed straight for their own team's feet. And George perfected it. He'd angle his body just right, twist his arm, and ping that ball directly under his hooker. It was basically cheating, but so sneaky, it worked. So what did World Rugby do? They rewrote the law. The ball must be fed straight. The ref must enforce it. And now, if you try a Gregan feed, you're getting blown up. Thanks, George. Now, let's jump from sneaky to strategic and meet the man who quite literally lifted the game to new heights. Paul OConnell, the line-out engineer. If you love line-outs, and come on, who doesn't love a well-executed 5-man lift and steal, then you need to know Paul OConnell. This guy was like a chess grandmaster disguised as a ginger skyscraper. O'Connell revolutionised the timing, movement, and structure of the line-out. And the big shift? Lifting. Before the mid-2000s, lifting was a weird grey area, sometimes legal, sometimes not, and always a little dangerous. But when Paul got going, it was like watching ballet in slow motion. His calls were fast, his jumps were timed to the millisecond, and his lifters, well, they could probably throw him into orbit. Because of that precision and dominance, World Rugby made lifting fully legal, but with strict safety rules. Thanks to Paulie, every team now treats the line out like a science, with codes, calls, jump charts, and counter moves. And without him, modern lineouts just wouldn't look the same. Okay, this next guy would take 3 points off you without even breaking a sweat. Let's talk, Johnny. Johnny Wilkinson. Johnny Wilkinson didn't just kick the ball, he wrote Shakespeare with it. Now I know what you're thinking. Drop goals? Really, that's not exactly exciting, but Johnny made it deadly. 2003 World Cup final, England versus Australia, dying seconds of extra time. Wilkinson, off his weaker foot, bangs a drop goal that wins England their only World Cup. Iconic. Instant legend. But here's the thing, Wilkinson wasn't a one-trick pony. He made the drop goal part of England's actual attacking strategy. It wasn't a last-ditch thing, it was the thing. Get into the 22, protect the ruck, wait for Johnny to drop back, ping. 3 points. Again and again and again. And guess what? Teams hated it. Fans hated it. Even World Rugby was like, okay, we need to fix this before the game becomes a drop goal contest. So they started trialling tweaks, more points for tries, new breakdown rules, anything to keep the ball alive longer. Why? Because Wilkinson made the drop goal too effective. Israel Folau, Sky King of the High Ball. Have you ever thrown a ball up and just hoped someone would come down with it? Well, if Israel Folau was on your team, you didn't hope, you knew. This guy had vertical leap, like an NBA shooting guard. And once that ball went in the air, it was a one-man aerial show. Fullbacks, wingers, even forwards, no one could outjump him. He was fielding high balls like it was recess, and he was the tallest kid in school. But that dominance came with some serious consequences. See, when you're that good in the air, people try to stop you, legally or not. So we started seeing a lot of mid-air collisions, dangerous contests, and awkward landings. And World Rugby was like, alright, enough's enough. So they brought in new guidelines for aerial contests. Eyes on the ball, no undercutting, no shoulder checking players mid-air. Folau didn't break the rules. He exposed the fact that the rules weren't ready for players like him. And speaking of exposing things, the next player didn't just play fly half, he redefined it. It's Dan Carter time. Dan Carter. The perfect 10. Dan Carter. If rugby had a creator-player mode, this is who you'd end up building. Strong, fast, silky left boot, crisp passes, rock-solid defence, and clutch under pressure. He was the rugby equivalent of that kid in school who was good at everything and still humble about it. Now, before Carter, most fly halves were specialists. Some were kicking machines, others were great passers, and a few could run. But Dan, he did all three. And not just decently at world class. He turned the fly half into the most complete player on the pitch. And the knock-on effect? Teams started changing how they scouted and developed fly halves. Suddenly your number 10 had to be fit, fast, accurate, a good tackler, and a game manager. All because Dan Carter raised the bar to the moon. Even defensive strategies shifted. You couldn't just press up on him. He'd kick behind you. Sit back. He'd run. Pressure his passing lanes. He'd dummy and slice through. Dan Carter didn't just break the mould, he burned it. But while Dan was gliding through defensive lines, the next guy was running right through you, like a freight train in a Springbok jersey. Let's finish strong with Eben Etzebeth. Eben Etzebeth, the mobile monster. Eben Etzebeth isn't just big, he's scary big. Like 6 feet 8 inches, 120 kilograms, with shoulders that look like they were built in a lab. But what makes him a rule changer is that he moves like a back rower. He doesn't just hit rucks, he destroys them. He doesn't just carry, he launches. Etzebeth brought this new hybrid role into the second row. Old school locks were usually the tall, slow type, line out work. A few tackles, call it a day. Not Eben. He's smashing people in defence, sprinting in open play, and even linking up like a loose forward. But here's the twist. His physicality, especially around the ruck and tackle area, pushed the laws around off-the-ball contact and late hits. Because when someone like Eben clatters into a guy half a second after the pass, it hurts. A lot. and refs started realising that these borderline hits were causing real damage. So the game evolved again. More TMO reviews, more yellow cards for late hits, and a bigger focus on timing. All because one guy was playing lock like it was a contact sport inside a contact sport. But speaking of looking different, the next guy didn't just change how we play, he changed how the game looked, literally. Let's talk David Campese. David Campese, the goose step that gave defenders nightmares. Okay, now this guy, he was pure chaos, in the best way possible. David Campese didn't just play rugby, he performed it. Think magician meets winger meets I'm gonna do whatever I want, and you can't stop me. And his signature move, the goose step, yup, a little hop, a delay in stride, and then boom, acceleration out of nowhere. It confused defenders so badly that some of them looked like they hit the pause button on themselves. People didn't know whether to step up, back off, or just pray. The man once said, I don't pass. I create classic Campese. But here's where things got tricky. Campo started using dummy runs and off-the-ball movement that looked a little too clever. Defenders got obstructed, space opened up mysteriously. And referees, they weren't ready. So guess what? The laws around obstruction, decoy runners, and interference got a fresh polish. Because Campese made people question what was legal, what was skill, and what was just good old-fashioned sorcery. Which one of these rule-bending players would you say made the game better? Please let me know in the comments and then subscribe to the channel to check out our latest videos. Thank you.